Evolution is supposed to be a constant arms race. Everything adapts or it dies. Except a handful of animals looked at that deal and simply refused to play. Same body plan, unchanged, for 400 million years straight, through 5 mass extinctions and the entire rise and fall of the dinosaurs. And they're not fossils in a museum case. They're alive right now, doing the exact same thing they were doing before trees existed. So today, we're counting down 5 of them, starting with the one that's currently saving your life without you even knowing it. Meet the horseshoe crab. It's not actually a crab. It's more closely related to spiders and scorpions, which honestly doesn't help its case at all. This thing has been crawling along ocean floors for about 450 million years, which means it was already ancient before the first dinosaur ever took a step. It didn't survive by being tough in the way you'd expect. It survived because nothing ever found a good reason to bother it. Hard shell, decent camouflage, nothing particularly appetizing underneath. So while everything else around it kept getting hunted into extinction, the horseshoe crab just kept doing its thing, generation after generation, completely unbothered. But the really messed up part is what's in its blood. Horseshoe crab blood isn't red. It's bright blue because instead of iron, it uses copper to carry oxygen. And that blue blood does something almost nothing else on Earth can do. It clots instantly the second it touches bacterial toxins, which means every single vaccine, every intravenous bag, every piece of surgical equipment you've ever had near your body has probably been tested using horseshoe crab blood at some point. So right now, in facilities along the East Coast, workers are catching wild horseshoe crabs, draining up to 1/3 of their blood, and releasing them back into the ocean. Some of them don't make it. The ones that do just go right back to doing what they've been doing since before trees existed, like nothing happened. An animal older than backbones, keeping modern medicine sterile with blood the color of antifreeze. And it's been doing this, one way or another, for 450 million years. Now, if the horseshoe crab is unsettling because of what's inside it, the Nautilus is unsettling because of what's missing. The Nautilus is basically a squid that decided shells were a better life choice. It's the last living relative of the ammonites. You know, those spiral fossils you find literally everywhere, the ones that were once one of the most successful animal groups in ocean history. Every single ammonite species died out 66 million years ago in the same extinction that killed the dinosaurs. Every single one, except this guy's ancestors. The Nautilus has around 90 tentacles and 0 suckers, which already makes it look wrong compared to every other cephalopod you've ever seen. But the genuinely disturbing part is its eyes. A Nautilus doesn't have a lens. It sees the world through what's basically a pinhole camera. Light enters through a tiny hole in its eye and projects a blurry image directly onto its retina, the exact same way cameras worked before anyone figured out how to grind glass. It's been looking at the ocean through a design flaw for 500 million years and just never upgraded. And it survives at brutal depths, up to 2,000 feet down, using a shell full of gas-filled chambers that let it float exactly where it wants without spending any energy. It migrates hundreds of feet up and down every single day, hunting in the dark using a sense of smell so precise it doesn't need good eyesight anyway. Which honestly might be the real secret. It never fixed the eyes because it never needed to. This next one is going to be the one you wish you hadn't looked up. Lampreys are the oldest lineage of vertebrate on the planet. Older than sharks, older than bony fish, older than jaws. That's not a typo. Lampreys predate jaws. Their entire lineage branched off before evolution figured out that a mouth with hinges was a good idea. So instead of a jaw, a lamprey has a perfectly circular mouth lined with concentric rings of hooked teeth built around a rasping tongue that can grind straight through flesh and bone. It latches onto a fish, drills in, and feeds on blood and tissue for days, sometimes weeks, while its host is still alive and swimming around with a parasite attached to its side. And it's been feeding exactly like this for at least 360 million years. Some genetic estimates push that number even further back. While every other vertebrate on Earth was busy evolving jaws, then teeth, then limbs, then everything else that eventually turned into you, the lamprey looked at that whole process and said, No thanks, I've got a good thing going. It survived the extinction that wiped out most complex life on Earth. It shrugged off the one that killed the dinosaurs too. It's still down there right now, in rivers and coastlines, latching onto something with that same perfectly circular mouth it's had since before trees. If you've never heard of the velvet worm, that's honestly the point. It's been hiding successfully for about 500 million years, so it's clearly good at its job. Picture a caterpillar. Now imagine that caterpillar is actually a missing link between two entirely different branches of the animal kingdom. And also, it hunts by firing sticky slime out of its face, like some sort of prehistoric silly string cannon. That's a velvet worm. It looks almost exactly like fossils of its ancestors from the Cambrian period. The same soft body, the same stubby little legs, the same basic shape that shows up over and over again in 500 million-year-old rock. Scientists consider it one of the closest living links between worms and arthropods. A body plan so old it was already a relic when trilobites were considered cutting edge. And the hunting method is genuinely brutal. A velvet worm creeps up on prey at night, gets within striking range, and shoots 2 jets of sticky slime from glands near its mouth, sometimes hitting targets several body lengths away. The slime hardens almost instantly, gluing the victim in place while the velvet worm slowly closes the distance and eats it alive. No speed, no strength, no weapons in the traditional sense, just glue, patience, and 500 million years of practice. And now, the final boss of this list. The animal that makes everything else here look like a recent invention. Lingula is a brachiopod, a small, unassuming shellfish that looks a little like a tongue-shaped clam. Nothing about it screams apex predator or terrifying monster, and that's exactly why it's still here. Brachiopod fossils go back roughly 500 million years, and fossilized Lingula shells from that same period are functionally identical to the shells on living Lingula today. They share the exact same shape, proportions, and basic biology. Scientists have compared them side by side and found essentially no meaningful change. Charles Darwin himself pointed to Lingula as one of the strangest puzzles in evolutionary biology, an animal that had every opportunity, every environmental pressure, every mass extinction event to force it into changing, and it just never did. It burrows into sand using a fleshy stalk, sits there filtering food from the water, and waits. It was doing this before fish existed, before insects existed, before anything crawled onto land for the first time in Earth's history. And it's still doing it right now, buried in sediment somewhere, completely indifferent to the fact that it has outlasted almost everything else that has ever lived. 5 mass extinctions, 500 million years, and it's still the same shell. So that's 5 animals that looked at hundreds of millions of years of change and just refused to participate. A crab with blue blood keeping your medicines sterile, a squid relative still using a design flaw for eyes, a mouth older than jaws, a worm that never stopped being a missing link, and a shellfish that even Darwin couldn't explain. The unsettling part isn't that they're old, it's that they're still out there right now, doing exactly what they've always done, completely unbothered by everything that's happened around them since. Which animal on this list freaked you out the most? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this one, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more. And if you want to keep going, check out the video on the screen next.